Hi, my name's Chris Wood. I'm the lead ranger here at Fountains Abbey in Studley Royal. Join me this morning for a walk through the grounds, starting here in the deer park, before heading down into the water gardens and finishing off at the ruins of Fountains Abbey. Along the way we'll discuss climate change and some of the effects that we're seeing here on the estate, and crucially, what we're doing to adapt to the challenges that we're facing. We're starting our walk here by St Mary's Church, a fantastic piece of Victorian Gothic architecture. And it sits at the top of the Lime Avenue, which is a line of trees that run down through the deer park from west to east. And St Mary's Church sits at the top and catches the eye as you walk through the deer park. And as we head down, we'll see a vista that opens up, one of the best on the estate. So we turn this corner, and that Lime Avenue that I mentioned continues into the distance. And we get Ripon Cathedral framed by the trees. You can just about make it out this morning. There's a little bit of low-lying mist. Not a bad way to start the day. I'm going to head deeper into the deer park now. I spot a deer up ahead. I'm not sure whether you can make it out on the camera, but they're just ahead of me on this path. We have 300 deer on the estate, and they're looking magnificent at the moment. The male deer, the stags and bucks, are just gearing up for the autumn rut, which is when they fight for the attention of the females. And this old park comes alive with the sound of their bellowing, fighting talk. Even the deer, when we talk about climate change, are susceptible to changing weather patterns. Just this year we had a really wet start, going into a dry and warm end of March. And this coincided with a sensitive time in the life cycle of the deer, when they were just about to give birth to young. And we also saw a slight delay in the change of coat from winter coat to summer coat, and this undoubtedly was to do with that weather that we had. Now you may just pick them up now. These are the red deer. You can see their ginger bums, and there's a couple of calves in there, this year's calves, and they don't want to entertain me, unfortunately. It's a beautiful sight. Just coming up to two of my favourite trees on the estate. There's this oak tree, which is an absolute whopper. It's the fattest tree on the estate, and it blows my mind, the size of it. It's incredible. I mean, some of the branches themselves would be big trees. And as we pass the oak tree, there's another amazing tree, a cherry tree. Now this is thought to be one of, if not the, oldest cherry trees in England. Whoops, sorry Mr. Pheasant. And even though it only has the single remaining living limb, it still produces fantastic blossom in spring and fruit in autumn. The Trust have huge ambitions to plant more trees. Trees can help us tackle climate change. But of course it needs to be the right tree in the right place. And here in the deer park and across the estate we have many trees like the cherry and oak that are old and distinguished and extremely valuable. So as we look to the future, we want to ensure that new trees are planted in the shadows of these grates and establish that next generation, so we can make sure this landscape is resilient going forward. So we're just coming onto the Lime Avenue. We were at the top by St Mary's Church at the start, and you can kind of see how it also frames that view to the top. And then if we turn and look at the other way down to Ripon Cathedral, absolutely magnificent. So we're just now coming up to Studley Lake. This is a man-made lake and actually forms part of the River Skell. The River Skell runs through the site, past the Abbey, through the water gardens and into the deer park. And what we've seen in recent years is some severe flooding along the river, and undoubtedly an increase in the frequency of extreme weather events. Studies have shown in the last 50 years that flooding has worsened in the north of England, and that this is linked to a changing climate. And when flooding does occur here, as you can imagine, it can cause a huge amount of damage. In a recent flood event, this entire path was covered with silt and leaves and debris. I think we took 3 trailer loads away in the tractor on the clean-up. I've seen the water rushing out of the lake and over the pedestrian bridge with such a force. On a day like this morning, it's not a bad spot again. But talking about flooding, as I say, this isn't the only part of the story here. And we'll make our way now to the water gardens. And I can talk a little bit more there about some of the effects that we're seeing. Another lovely view from the other side of Studley Lake, and then behind me into the water gardens down the canal. We talked about flooding And it's no different in the water gardens, unfortunately. We've seen water completely taking up this space, and it's devastating. It's why the National Trust, along with other partners, have launched the River Skell project. This is all about working beyond our boundaries along the entire catchment of the River Skell, starting upstream at the source on Dollaghill Moor, and then all the way down to the city of Ripon. And it's about working with farmers on their land, introducing natural flood management techniques, things like leaky dams to slow the flow of water, pond creation to hold water, tree planting. But it's also about celebrating the River Skell and working with local communities. There's a lot of heritage, a lot of nature. It's a really special valley and a quite exciting project which is just launched. If you'd like to find out more information, you can go on our website to search the Skell Valley project. We're now at the Half Moon Reservoir. We just passed those yew trees that have been planted recently, and again, when we've had flooding here, those trees have been completely uprooted, some of them. Some of the benches, these white benches, completely washed away in flood water. The water coming right past the reservoir up onto the path. It really is shocking when you see the effect that it has on this incredible place. What a place. What a place. So Fountains Abbey is the largest monastic ruins in the UK. So many layers of history. It's why this place is so special, you know. And it's not just the Abbey, the water gardens and the deer park together. It's why this place was made a World Heritage Site. And it's easy to see why. As mentioned before, the River Skell passes by the Abbey, and again, when we do have those flooding events that seem to be happening more frequently and are more intense, it's putting the Abbey itself at irreparable risk. It's why we need to work with local people, local partners, work beyond our boundaries and with nature. It's only then that we can try and tackle the problem. I'm afraid that's all we've got time for, but thank you so much for joining me on this whistle-stop tour of Fountains Abbey in Studley Royal. We can only continue our work here with your support, our visitors and members and local partners. So thank you.